Oh, kia ora koutou and greetings. I don't have hair extensions, but I do like to weave. So I'm going to talk to you about how to make gathering evidence and evaluation an ally. I'm going to come at it from three angles. Firstly, the frame or the mindset that you bring to it, how you think about it, what you can do in-house, and what to think about when you're getting outside help. I'm going to finish by promoting a new website that's been launched in November. It's designed to help not-for-profits to know and show the difference that they make, and that's called the What Works website. So I'm just going to begin by locating myself in this zone so you can see where I'm coming from. I have, as Fran said, I've got a local government, social community development, research evaluation background. I began consulting in Wellington around 2000 and I fell into evaluating as most evaluators here do. It's a young profession. We learn on the job. There's very few professional learning opportunities out there. I helped set up the Aotearoa New Zealand Evaluation Association, and I really recommend you look into joining that organisation. They have great conferences, learning opportunities, branches right around Aotearoa. And I'm back on that board, and I also collaborate a lot with others. One of the lessons I've learned about evaluating is it's not a sole activity. You need to do it with others. So I work with the Centre for Social Impact, which is aligned with ASB Community Trust, now Foundation North, among others. For a couple of years in 2013-14, I worked as Principal Advisor for Gail Surgener, who some of you will know when she was Manager for the Community Development Unit at Auckland Council. So she's a social innovator in the public sector. I learned a lot from her, steeped in language of design thinking, systems thinking, and have come across Theory U. Has anyone here started that course that started last week? Okay, so that's something you might want to look into. Theory U suggests that our impact in the world reflects the quality of awareness and consciousness that we operate from. So the greater our level of personal evolution and consciousness, the greater the impact that we have in the world. But basically, around evaluation, my aim is to help demystify and support people to critique and improve what they do. So this is what we're all grappling with. Well, probably not literally this. There's some pretty freaky stuff in this picture. But we're all about trying to tell a story about the complex, messy reality of the human drama. Words and numbers just don't cut it, and neither do doorstop reports. That's why we're seeing, partly why we're seeing a growth and a whole huge range of other ways to tell that story. This can be really lonely work for people in organisations who are trying to get underneath what the organisation's doing and the difference it makes. And especially if, as in a lot of organisations, there is funding pressure, time pressure, a doing culture, and lots of scattered attention and low priority given to telling your story. So evaluation, it's really a way of thinking. And I'm suggesting that the quality of thinking and attention that you give to it will drive what you get out of it. So here's a couple of frames for thinking about evaluation. This is one that I've adapted from Kate McKeag, who's the convener of ANZIA. She's a world-class evaluator. And this is from a presentation she gave on developmental evaluation, which you can find on YouTube. And I think, who here has heard of developmental evaluation? In there, I think, is the germs of what Tai Chua was talking about this morning, a different way at coming at evaluation. It walks alongside initiatives as they unfold. The evaluator is a critical friend. It gives you real-time, quick feedback loops. It's quite a different way of doing it. So the E here is for the evidence. It's for the data, the measurement bit, the information about what you do and what it produces, and that can be qualitative or quantitative. The value is the process of making sense of that data, that information, and so you can make judgments about effectiveness and worth and importance. It's here that you can also surface the values in play and the mindsets that's operating. Of course, all of that's worthless without the action and the implications for your practice. When I looked at that, what Kate had, this is what I saw, and it's the head, the heart, and the hand. And good evaluative work brings the head, the heart, and the hand together in the right ways to tell a clear story. And you can tell in your organisations if you're out of balance with one of these things. If you have too much emphasis on the analytical, the head stuff, the thinking, too much weight's given to the hard data, the people and the realness of the work gets lost. The complexity is dumbed down and it feels soulless and empty, and we've all been faced with those reports and those hard numbers. If, on the other hand, there's only the rich stories, the people's opinions, the anecdotal stuff, without the rigour of those hard-edged changes in data, then it feels rickety and wishy-washy, especially to funders. So the sense-making process in here, it involves intuition as well as evidence. It involves values, interpretation, and applying your wisdom and experience. So the clear implications that guide the practice, that guide the hand, should be the result. So when you're evaluating and gathering your evidence, you need these three together to create shifts and tell your story. So when you think about where you are now and making friends with evaluating, first consider where you're at. And if your current approach isn't working for you, then I'll invite you to change it. A good place to start with yourself and with your team is to look at the purpose of investing time, energy and resource into clearly showing your value. What's in it for you? There's a whole bunch of obvious reasons and a whole lot of drivers. But having an honest conversation with your team about what you gain, what you lose and what gets in the way is a good place to start. The best lever you probably have in your organisation is the passion that your people have to make a difference. If that passion can be translated or tipped into getting underneath, showing what's happening, then that's a good lever to use. Secondly, measuring what matters to those that matter. There's two issues there. One is capturing and reporting what matters most to those range of people. There's been a lot of talk today about focusing on the people that you're working with and for, clearly putting what matters to them at the centre of what you measure and what you track is the heart and soul of this work. Having sharp conversations and really focused conversations with each of these groups and what they really want to know, what is success for them, what's most important to them. If you ask those people for their top three, you can see where they overlap, where there's gaps. And when you're asking those questions, having those conversations, look for what makes people sit up, what makes them lean in, what energises them. And those are the things to capture. These all need to be checked for doability, because another key message is having really lean evidence. When I work with the Rise Up Trust, they call it their lean and mean performance story, because they want to really hone in on what matters and they haven't got time to look at the extraneous stuff. If you capture a few things really well and you negotiate on this hard with your funders, your board and your managers, you're on a good path. So once you're clear about what matters most to people, what is the data, what's the evidence that's going to respond to that, and how do you present it to those people? There's a growing range of ways. You may still need the big report, but there's a growing range of ways that you can present your evidence more simply. You could have a one-page infographic. You can use rich pictures. You can use slide docs, you can use DVDs and photo methods. You can ask the people you serve to present to your funders. Jargon is a key reason for resistance to evaluating and evidence gathering. So calling it something that works for you and using language that resonates in your organisation. experimenting with how you go about it. Some people like to do little bits frequently, some people like to take a day out at a time, get out of the office and go deeper into it. You need to bring together the right mix of people in your team, your feelers, thinkers and doers, and bring your most black hat into that conversation, the most negative, cynical person, and see what works for them around evidence and telling a story. Asking the most powerful questions to guide your work, and to focus on framing things positively. There's been a lot of talk about that as well, an appreciative inquiry, focusing on success. I'm in the process at the moment of developing a 10-year study with a principal of a Decile 1 school. He says there's a lot of work focusing on the people doing it toughest. He wants to know about what the successful families in his community and his contact are doing, what's happening for them. What are those features that are working and creating functioning families in tough environments? If you're using a particular approach that drains your energy, then either don't use it or minimise your use of it. Long lists of KPIs is a good example of that. I come from an organisation that had a fondness for those, but they're meaningless and people don't resonate with them, and it's a lot of wasted time and energy. Quite often, evaluation is focused too much on the organisation. There's the balance there between the people you're there for and what's going on. In the RBA sense, it's the balance between your population and your performance. So putting those people at the centre and asking what story of change they would tell. Doing this work isn't a solitary activity, and one way to make it ineffective is to say to someone in your organisation, off you go, it's your responsibility. That's a certain way to minimise its effectiveness. The responsibility needs to be shared, the data collection needs to be shared, having the feedback from the people you're working with. If you're doing this really well, the questions that you ask will be transformative for the people that you're working with and for your team. If you're starting where you are, good community development principle, start where you are with what you have. Look at what you already have in terms of your people. Who's got the interest and energy for this work in your team? What data and systems do you have? What do you keep and what do you let go of? What skills do you need to develop within your team, and what are the skills that you need to bring in? So if you could say, hand on heart, that you have the evidence when someone asks for you to demonstrate your worth, what would be different in your organisation for you to be able to say this? If you put this another way, what would this look like for you? Laura spoke about the need for leadership around this and that you need to want to do this work. So the first step is wanting to and seeing it as a priority, and then building into making it so that you can. When you're looking at getting outside help, here's a few things for you to think about. Quite often people put out a brief, and in my experience, it's good to negotiate what you're after. If a good evaluator will work with you around what it is that you need, ask you some good questions, and you'll end up potentially with something quite different. So negotiate the purpose in the brief. Look for the right person who understands your context, who has the empathy for your work, and has the fit with your team. Consider how you can learn from their skills and start bringing them more into your organisation. If it's a large-scale initiative, it's always a good idea to put out an expression of interest first, see what comes back, and then interview for the right fit. Also ask for the results presented in ways that you can use that that have the right blend of the head and the heart, that have the clear implications for action, and that are visual as well as narrative. So, if evaluation and evidence gathering are your friend, these are some of the things that would be happening in your organisation. You're measuring what matters, you've got the right questions asked, the right interests at the heart, it's valuable to you, you can see its benefits, it's energising, you're doing it together, and it's telling a clear and compelling story of value. So just to finish on this new website, this is an MSD-funded website. It's led by Community Research, and we have Jan Hind, the Director of Community Research here. Its purpose is to support the social sector, really, to evidence their work. It's about to go out for testing, and if you're interested in having a look at the site, email Manu there. It's also full of stories and case studies from the community sector who've used different evaluative approaches. It's a case study on what they did and what they learnt from that approach. If you have a case study that you want to contribute to that site, it's a really good way to profile your organisation and to share what you're learning. Also, please contact Manu. And Jan will be out in the foyer at the break if you have questions about that site. Kia ora koutou.